The boy dashed across Lexington Avenue without looking sideways. He dodged a yellow cab that screeched to a halt, heard the driver shout curses, but didn't stop. His bare feet touched the hot Manhattan asphalt while his eyes focused on only one target, the door of Le Meunier Bakery. It was 7:11 a.m. He knew that because for the past 4 days he had hidden behind the newsstand next to the bakery and timed everything. At 7:12, the bread went into the display window. And at 7:13, the glass fogged up from the steam of the fresh batch. That Friday, the boy decided to act. With a worn-out shirt clinging to his body and soot-stained hands, he pushed the glass door forcefully. The bell rang too loudly. 3 people in line turned. The barista stopped steaming the milk. A woman in a blue blazer curled her lips in disapproval. He didn't hesitate. He ran straight to the back of the bakery, where a basket of artisanal breads rested under the golden morning sunlight. His hands grabbed the first one he saw, a large, crispy Italian loaf, still warm. That's when he felt the thick hand of the security guard on his shoulder. "Hey, what do you think you're doing, punk?" The voice was deep, heavy with authority. The man yanked the boy back hard. The bread fell to the ground. The child tried to escape, but the guard's fingers gripped him with brutal force, as if holding something vile. Customers began whispering. An elderly woman covered her mouth. A businessman pulled out his phone and started recording. The barista stopped what he was doing. Even the hissing espresso machine seemed to go silent for a moment. The boy didn't cry. He didn't try to explain. He simply lowered his eyes, panting, waiting for the shove that would come next. But it didn't come. If this story moves you, don't forget to like and subscribe. You'll understand why in the next few minutes. "Let him go," ordered a calm but firm voice. The security guard turned. It was the baker, white coat with his name embroidered in blue, Henry Galloway, a man with a tired expression but sharp eyes. He was drying his hands on a dish towel and walking slowly, with the authority of someone who commands without needing to shout. "He tried to steal, sir," said the guard, "and you think that's solved by crushing a child's arm?" Henry crouched, picked the bread up off the floor, observed the cracked crust and irregular shape. Then he looked at the boy. He didn't say anything for a few seconds. He just stared, as if trying to understand what lay behind those hungry eyes. "His name is Jesse," said a voice from behind. It was the barista, Mike. "He sleeps near the 86th Street station. I've seen that kid picking food from the supermarket trash." Henry nodded slightly and extended his hand to the boy. "Jesse, is that right?" The boy didn't respond. He kept his eyes fixed on the floor. "Are you hungry?" This time he nodded, almost imperceptibly. "Then come with me." The security guard stepped aside, annoyed. The customers still watched, torn between curiosity and disapproval. Henry crossed the counter and led Jesse to the back of the bakery without saying another word. The kitchen was hot. The smell of yeast, butter, and sugar was intense. 4 workers moved quickly, kneading dough, brushing on egg wash, and prepping batches. "Break for 15 minutes, announced Henry. "No one touches him." He pointed to a chair near the industrial fridge. Jesse sat down slowly, as if doubting it was real. Henry assembled a plate with 2 thick slices of bread, scrambled eggs, and some ham. He grabbed a mug of hot milk and placed everything in front of the boy. "You can eat." Jesse hesitated. His dirty hands trembled. His eyes scanned every corner of the kitchen as if searching for a trap. But hunger won. He ate fast. Big, noisy bites, without caring about manners. Like someone who knows this might be their last decent meal for days. Henry watched from a distance. He didn't judge, just took it in. "How old are you?" he asked when Jesse finished. 8, he replied, mouth still full. "Do you have family?" "No." "Anyone taking care of you?" Jesse shook his head. Henry sighed deeply. The barista appeared at the kitchen door but said nothing, just observed. "Do you want to come back tomorrow?" The boy stopped chewing, looked suspicious. "Come back to eat?" "Come back to work." Jesse furrowed his brow. He didn't understand. Wipe counters, help carry flour, learn to cut dough. You help me, I give you food. Deal? The boy stayed silent. He hadn't expected that. He was used to handouts, leftovers, closed doors. This was different. It was an invitation. But you don't even know me, he said finally. Maybe it's time to change that. Henry extended his hand. Jesse didn't shake it right away. But after a few seconds, he slowly raised his arm and made contact. It was a quick, hesitant handshake, but sincere. That morning, for the first time in weeks, Jesse didn't return to the alley behind the station. He sat near the sink, watched the bakers roll croissants, and at the end of the shift, he left the bakery with a brown paper bag in hand. No one noticed, but he smiled. The next morning, Jesse was standing in front of Le Meunier Bakery, even before the sun had fully risen. The city was just beginning to wake up, and the bakery's lights glowed like a beacon in a sea of concrete. He hesitated at the door. His body wanted to enter, but his mind screamed that this was too good to be true, and good things didn't last. He took 2 steps back, then 3 forward. He was about to turn around when the door opened and Henry appeared, holding a cardboard box and already wearing an apron dusted with flour. I was starting to think you wouldn't come. Jesse stood still, unsure whether to smile or apologize. Come on in, we've got a lot to do. He stepped inside slowly. No bell this time. It was too early for customers. The kitchen was lit, warm, alive. Dough was already proofing in giant bowls. A small radio played instrumental jazz. Mike, the barista, gave a wordless nod. Henry pointed to a workstation. Wash your hands first. Jesse did as he was told. The warm water stung a little, but it was an almost comforting feeling. He used liquid soap until it foamed and rinsed carefully, then dried his hands on his pants until he noticed the towel hanging beside him. Henry watched, but didn't correct each step. He simply guided, and Jesse followed. You'll start by helping to arrange the trays. Then you'll learn to clean the counter between batches. Over time, maybe you'll learn to fold the dough. Jesse nodded, focused. It was as if every word was a password to a secret place he'd always wanted to be. For the next 2 hours, Jesse worked in silence. He picked up baking sheets, organized pans, wiped up spills. He didn't quite understand why the other workers didn't talk to him, but he didn't complain. Being there was already more than he had hoped. Then, by accident, he dropped a bowl of flour on the floor. The sound of the breaking glass was like thunder in the kitchen. Everyone stopped. The blood drained from Jesse's face. His hands froze mid-air. He knew what was coming. He'd seen other kids get slapped for much less in shelters. He braced for yelling, or to be kicked out, but Henry simply sighed. It's okay. It happens. He picked up a broom, handed it to the boy, and went back to what he was doing. No yelling, no threats, no humiliation. Jesse took a few seconds to react, but then swept up the white dust as if it were gold. At breakfast time, Henry placed 2 plates on the kitchen table. You eat with us, always. Jesse sat next to Mike, who glanced at him and said, You're good with the peel, fast hands. Jesse gave a small smile, one he hadn't shown in a long time. Throughout the week, Jesse began to learn the names. Nancy prepared the fillings. Luis was the oven assistant. Donna, the manager, pretended to be tough, but left cookies hidden for him in the cupboard. Henry watched everything from a distance, like someone planting something quietly. And Jesse, little by little, began to bloom. On the 5th day, Jesse arrived before everyone. He opened the kitchen windows, swept the floor, lit the oven under supervision. When Henry arrived, he found everything in order. What time do you wake up? He asked, pouring coffee. Before the city. And where do you sleep? At the subway entrance, behind the ticket machines. It's warm. Henry said nothing for a few seconds. You can stay here. Jesse's eyes widened. In the bakery, in the storeroom, we've got a mattress, a blanket. Better than the cold station floor. Jesse didn't reply immediately. The idea of a roof, even if made of cardboard, was hard to accept. This wasn't just food. It was refuge. Why? He asked. his voice nearly breaking. Henry shrugged. Because someone once did that for me, and because you seem like someone who just needs a chance. That night, Jesse slept in the storeroom. The hum of the walk-in fridge was constant, but he felt safe. A pillow, a blanket, and the smell of fresh bread seeping through the cracks. The next morning, he was already part of the routine. He knew when to pull the brioches, how to store the utensils. Customers started to notice. A woman asked, "Is that your son?" Henry simply replied, "He works with me." And Jesse smiled. For the first time, he felt part of something. But the city doesn't forgive the invisible for long. On Saturday afternoon, 2 police officers entered the bakery. Jesse was cleaning the counter. When he saw the uniforms, he froze. Mike noticed. "Is there a problem?" he asked. "We received reports of a minor sleeping in a commercial establishment without shelter authorization," said the taller of the two. Henry stepped out from the kitchen, wiping his hands on his apron. "Can I help you?" "We need to talk about the boy." Jesse felt his heart in his throat. The fear returned like a punch. "He works with me," said Henry. "He earns in bread and safety. That's not how it works. He needs to be registered, attend school, have a legal guardian. Otherwise, he ends up in the system." Henry crossed his arms. "You've seen what happens to them in the system?" The officer didn't respond, but his partner said, "We have to follow protocol." Jesse wanted to run, but he knew it wouldn't help. "Give me 24 hours, said Henry. "Just that. Then you can come back." The officers exchanged glances, hesitated, and agreed. When they left, Jesse sat on the floor, drained. Henry knelt beside him. "Do you trust me?" The boy only nodded. "Then tomorrow we'll fix this." At 6 a.m., Henry unlocked the drawer in the back office. He pulled out a yellowed envelope with old papers, a blue ink pen, and a worn leather folder. Jesse was still asleep in the storeroom, wrapped in the brown blanket Donna had discreetly left 2 days earlier. Henry watched the boy for a moment. His breathing was slow. For the first time, he was sleeping without restlessness. It was deep, whole sleep, as if he finally didn't have to run from anything, but peace had a deadline. The 24-hour grace period offered by the police was already ticking away, and Henry knew that without documents, without legal grounds, Jesse was doomed to disappear again, maybe into a negligent orphanage, maybe to the streets of another neighborhood, maybe to nowhere at all. Mike arrived at 6:30, hair messy and his usual cup of black coffee in hand. He found Henry at the table, papers spread out before him. "You sure you want to do this?" asked the barista, seeing the temporary guardianship application form. Henry didn't respond right away. He simply pushed the folder toward Mike. "Read what's in there and tell me if he deserves to go back to the cold." Mike picked up the paper, read quickly. A handwritten letter by Henry, explaining the reasons for the request. In it, he described Jesse as a smart boy, craving belonging and frighteningly responsible for someone raised in neglect. "You're going to become the guardian of a kid you met 5 days ago?" Mike asked. "If I'd waited to know my father better, I would have missed everything he taught me, even without ever hugging me." At exactly 7 a.m., Jesse appeared in the doorway, rubbing his eyes. He looked cleaner than ever, thanks to the improvised bath Donna had prepared the night before, with a basin, towels, and lavender soap. "Where is everyone?" he asked, voice still groggy. Henry stood up. "Today you're coming with me to downtown Manhattan. I need to take care of something at family court." Jesse stepped back slightly. "Are they going to take me?" "Not if I'm with you." On the way, Jesse stayed silent in the passenger seat of the bakery van. He watched buildings pass through the window with a fixed gaze, as if looking for imaginary escape routes in case he needed to run. Henry drove calmly, fingers tapping the wheel to the rhythm of the soft instrumental music playing on the radio. At the family court office on 60th Street, the stares were inevitable. A man in a flour-dusted baker's coat with a barefoot boy at his side was not a common sight there. The receptionist read the emergency custody request, then looked at Jesse, then at Henry. "The judge will want to hear both of you. Are you sure you want to go through with this?" "Absolutely." After 2 hours of waiting, they were called into a small room with tall windows and the smell of old paper. The judge, a grey-haired man with a measured voice, asked the standard questions. Full name? Henry Thomas Galloway. And the minors? Jesse, just Jesse, Henry replied. He doesn't know his last name. Parents' status? Unknown. They've never filed a missing person report based on what I found through a friend at the NYPD. The judge looked at Jesse. Do you want to live with Mr. Henry? The boy took a while to answer. He looked at his flour-stained hands, thought of the bakery, the shy lunchtime laughs, Donna's hidden cookies. Then he raised his eyes. I do. You understand that means attending school, following schedules, taking on responsibilities? Jesse nodded. And do you trust him? Yes. The judge stayed silent for a few seconds, then signed the paper. Temporary guardianship granted for 90 days. Mandatory evaluation by a social worker in 30 days. Henry took the documents as if holding a hot brick. He thanked the judge, shook his hand, and looked at Jesse with an expression that mixed relief and a silent promise. On the way out, they stopped at a second-hand clothing store in Harlem, bought 2 t-shirts, a pair of pants, and sneakers. Jesse tried everything on quickly, as if he'd have to return it all in minutes. Pick whatever you want, it's yours. All this? You'll need more for school. The word school hit like thunder. Jesse froze. Do I have to? Yes, but I'll be there after class, always. The next morning, Henry took Jesse to the Manhattan School for Boys. The principal, a dark-skinned woman with large glasses named Ms. Turner, received them with suspicion and skepticism. Do you have a birth certificate, school records? No, but he can read and do math better than a lot of adults. Really? She said, turning to Jesse. What's 22 times 3? 66, he answered without blinking. The principal raised an eyebrow. Well, maybe we can start from here. She handed them a provisional enrollment form. Henry signed it. Jesse watched him like someone seeing another step into fire for their sake. I'll be back at 3 to pick you up, Henry said on his way out. Meet me at the gate, deal? Jesse didn't reply, just nodded, eyes avoiding contact again. He was afraid Henry wouldn't come back. But at 2:55, Henry was there, with a croissant in a napkin. To celebrate your first day of school. Jesse ran to him, and for the first time, he hugged someone. And Henry hugged him back. The white sign on the glass door of Le Meunier Bakery remained for 5 days, closed for inspection. But for Jesse, those were the longest 5 days of winter. Without the kitchen running, without customers, without the early morning routine of kneading dough, he felt the emptiness return. Not in his stomach, but in his chest. It was as if part of him was hollow, suspended between the fear of losing everything and the silent hope that something greater was being built. Henry showed no sign of discouragement. Every day, without fail, he woke up at 6, turned on the kitchen lights and said, "We don't need to sell to keep making bread." And then he would teach Jesse new processes, how to control fermentation, how to use colder water on hotter days, how to feel the dough without looking, just by touch. And Jesse, with sharp eyes and a mind starving for belonging, absorbed it all. On the afternoon of the 6th day, they received a visit from the city inspector, a middle-aged woman in a thick coat with a folder full of forms. "Mr. Galloway?" "Yes, welcome." She walked through the back of the bakery with a clipboard in hand. "Check the cleanliness, verified labels, check the temperature logs. I see you have all the guardianship documents, and the boy is properly enrolled in school." "Yes, ma'am." She turned to Jesse. "Do you like it here?" "It's my place," he replied without hesitation. She smiled slightly, a brief smile like someone who doesn't want to be moved, but is, anyway. "Well, everything's in order. The report was unfounded. You can reopen tomorrow." And only then did Henry truly exhale. The next morning, the bakery reopened with a line outside. Journalists, old customers, curious onlookers. A woman brought flowers. A boy from Jesse's school showed up with a note. And at noon, the mayor of Manhattan walked in, bought a rustic loaf of bread, and left without a word. but dropped an envelope into the suggestion box with the city seal. Inside, an invitation for Henry and Jesse to attend an event on community initiatives the following month. Jesse now wore an apron with his name embroidered on it, a birthday gift made early by Donna. He also had a name badge, Junior Baking Assistant, which he wore with more pride than any rich kid's trophy. But there were still invisible scars. On a cold Saturday, while cleaning the storefront, Jesse saw a familiar figure cross the street. A thin man, black cap, fast stride, dirty face, eyes exactly like the ones Jesse saw in the broken mirror in the storeroom. The man stopped across the street. The two stared at each other for a few seconds. Jesse froze. It was his father, or the man who claimed to be. They hadn't spoken in years. The last time he saw him, the man was shouting over an empty wallet and a crushed beer can. After that, he disappeared. Now he was there, sunken eyes, hands in his pockets, and not a word. Jesse took a step forward, but Henry appeared beside him. "Who is it?" he asked in a neutral tone. He left me." Henry watched the man for a few seconds. The figure looked away and turned, vanishing into the traffic. "Do you want to go after him?" Jesse thought about the cold, the nights behind the subway, the times he dreamed of that figure. Then he thought about the rising dough, the smell of fermentation, the note on the wall with the words he had written himself. "No, I already know where I belong." Henry didn't say anything. He just placed a hand on Jesse's shoulder, firm, silent, true. In the following months, the bakery became more than just a business. It became a symbol. City Hall named it a model space for reintegration. Henry was invited to speak at schools, events, and even a forum on late-stage adoption, but he declined most of them. "My work is here, with him and with the bread." Jesse stayed in school. His grades improved. He earned a partial scholarship for math tutoring. He began writing a small journal with recipes, secrets, and quotes. On the cover, "Things I learned in the place I never thought I'd be accepted." On the one-year anniversary of the first time he ran into that bakery, Jesse woke up earlier than everyone. Put on his apron, lit the ovens, gathered the ingredients. He created his own recipe, a sweet bread filled with red berries, vanilla, and orange zest. It took 3 hours to finish. When it was done, he placed it on the counter and called Henry. "For you, for everything." Henry cut a slice, tasted it slowly, and then smiled sincerely. "It's perfect." Jesse looked at him anxious. "Better than mine," Henry added. The staff clapped. Mike recorded it with his phone. Donna cried as always. At the end of the shift, Jesse stepped outside to breathe. He leaned against the bakery wall and looked at the sky. The city lights competed with the stars, but in that moment, he saw everything clearly. He wasn't afraid. He wasn't hiding. And for the first time, he was no longer the boy who stole bread. He was Jesse Galloway, baker, son, someone, and the world finally knew the taste of his story.